Hi guys, my name is Chef Nikhil and welcome to Urban Platter's Simply Good cooking class. Today we're going to be making a really decadent but completely gluten-free and vegan chocolate tart. You might know chocolate tart as a heavy, really buttery and really doughy sort of dessert, but this one is really light and also decadent at the same time. We're using some rolled oats and a few other ingredients that we'll talk about in a little bit. So the first step into making this guilt-free chocolate tart is to sort of grind up these rolled oats that we have. I've ground them up into sort of like a coarse powder, into which we're going to be adding a 3/4 cup of just regular all-purpose flour or maida. Goes right in. Then 1/3 cup of our virgin coconut oil. So this recipe is going to be very coconut centric, but because these are really premium ingredients and they even though they taste of coconut a lot, in the recipe along with the chocolate and along with the cocoa powder, you're not going to be able to taste as much coconut. So what the purpose of this fat and this gorgeous coconut nectar syrup is to bind all of the ingredients in the tart dough itself and give that crispy texture to it. So I've got this virgin coconut oil that has been melted. I'm just going to pour this in. Followed by our gorgeous coconut nectar syrup. A little bit about a nectar syrup. This is made using the sap of coconut flowers. So as you can see that it's a gorgeous sweetener. You can use it in all of your baked goods or as a sweetener for your beverages. It has a really low glycemic index as well, so it doesn't fluctuate your sugar levels as much, and it's perfect for a diabetic. So I'm just going to add this coconut nectar syrup into this mixture. I'm going to try and get all of it from my bowl that I had it measured out in. Followed by some cocoa powder. And one of my favorite ingredients, some cinnamon powder. As we know that we're reaching a bit of a fall sort of season, so cinnamon is one of my favorite spices to work with during this season, just because it encompasses some warmth. It really amps up baked goods with that little hint of florality and spice as well. Cinnamon is one of my favorite spices, and I definitely recommend that you get this little shaker jar from Urban Platter, because this will probably last you like 2 to 3 months, even if you're baking every day. You don't need a lot, you need to use it sparingly, but it really changes the depth in any baked good. Goes in. So now that all of my ingredients for my tart base are in this bowl, all I'm going to do is just mix it all up and make my tart right here. Before I do this, I just want to let you guys know that my oven is preheating right now at 200 degrees Celsius, but I am going to bake the tart base at 180 degrees Celsius. So just mix. Make sure that all of the ingredients are combined. All of the fat, all of the nectar syrup, all of that needs to be well combined. You can even use your hands, which I'm going to do in 1 second. So as you can see, I'm mixing this up really well with my hands, trying to incorporate all of the flour with all of the fat and all of the sweetener as well. I'm going to show you a neat little trick that will help you gauge if the consistency of the tart base is good or not. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to just clump it up. So if it's able to form a ball like this, it means that when it goes into the tart mold, it's going to hold its shape. And when it bakes, it's going to hold its shape as well and get that nice crispy texture. So now that we know that our tart base is good to go, I'm just going to transfer it onto our mold right here. If you have a little bit of extra right here, you can just bake it like this and you have some delicious streusel, chocolate streusel ready to go. So now I'm just going to evenly spread this out and then we're going to apply pressure into it. So the bottom part of the tart is one of the most important ones. If you get it too thin, your filling is just going to flow out of it. If it's too thick, then you're not going to be able to add as much filling as you would like for the tart. Another really important part of the tart is the sides. I don't mean these sides, I mean these sides where the tart is very vulnerable to break from those ends. So we're just going to be very careful as we are pounding this in. So I'm going to begin with the center to make sure that all of it is nice and homogenized like it is here. Like you can see the difference between a not homogenized part and a homogenized part right here. As I go towards these edges, I use my finger to sort of tuck all of those little crevices that I have. If you get a little break right here, just take some more filling and fill it up. Now that I'm happy with my base and my sides slightly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this part of my finger and I'm going to begin pressing onto the edges, onto the scalloped edges. This is only the first step into making the scalloped edges look like an actual tart. Now this looks pretty good to me. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is sort of increase the height of these edges, right? So I'm just going to use my thumb and each of these scallops, I'm just going to press firmly yet gently because you don't want to break the sort of texture and structure that you've already created, but you want to strengthen that structure. So I'm just going to press in with my thumb a little bit and I can see that the height of the edges is also raising. If there are parts where the height is really short, you can add a bit of the filling towards the side. So now that we're done pressing down into our tart mold, it's now time to bake this guy. Like I said, I was preheating my oven at 200 degrees Celsius, but now I'll be baking this tart at 180 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes. And in this guy goes. So now that our tart crust is baking, it's time to make the decadent chocolate filling. So I went ahead and melted this chocolate so that we can begin building this filling. What you can do is you can either melt it in a microwave in batches of 30 seconds. What I mean by that is that after every 30-second interval, take your bowl of chocolate out, mix it up well together and put it back in for another 30 seconds until completely melted. What you prevent by doing this is that you don't burn little parts of the chocolate because if you just put it in the microwave for 2 minutes and forget about it, the chocolate is going to begin burning on little pockets of the melting chocolate as well. Or you can use a double boiler, which is a pot of water that you bring to a boil and place a heat-proof bowl just like this one on top. You have to make sure that the bowl isn't touching any of the boiling water. Just the steam coming from that water is gently melting this chocolate. For that, we'll be using some of our gorgeous 55% couverture chocolate. Couverture is a very French technique of actually building the cocoa fat structure in chocolate before it's melted again. So it's a very coveted sort of chocolate and we're using that today because decadence is what we're all about. To that, we're going to be adding some coconut fat, our favorite coconut nectar syrup, and some cocoa powder. And who can forget some vanilla extract just for that balance, you know, because for me, vanilla is like the salt of the baking world. So let's go ahead and build this filling. I'm going to first add this coconut fat into this. Mix it in well. To this, we're going to add our coconut nectar syrup. I just love when this coconut nectar syrup drips into any bowl. That thick texture, that lovely amber gold color. It's really fun to watch and really good to taste as well. I'm going to try and get all of it. Give that a little whisk as well. To this, we're going to add a cup of unsweetened cocoa powder just to boost up that chocolate flavor, because who doesn't like chocolate? and whisk. Make sure you incorporate everything. So now I'm just going to add a few drops of our gorgeous vanilla extract. That's about it. I like vanilla in my baked goods, so I never really measure it. And with this extract, you can't really go wrong because of the texture. It's really thick, so it's not like vanilla essence where you try and pour a little bit and a lot falls down. You can actually control how much vanilla goes into this. I have encountered a problem when I'm making vegan ganache like this, is that sometimes my chocolate is too hot and I add some sugar into it and it all seizes up into like a big clump. If you ever encounter this problem yourself, all you have to do is add about quarter cup to a half cup of oat milk and you will be good to go, because all of the crystallized sugar kind of dissolves with the oat milk and your ganache will be back to being good. So now that this ganache is nice and thick, like look at that, like how can that not taste good at all? Now this ganache is ready to go into our tart base. So by the looks of it, my tart base looks ready to go. I'm just going to bring it out of the oven and then we'll let it cool down for about 30 minutes just so that this filling can go into the mixture and not begin melting right away. That looks pretty good to me. As you can see, the color slightly changed. It's all solidified on the bottom. I can see a few cracks here and there, but that's okay. I'm just going to add a little bit of that streusel topping that I had said, and I'm just going to fill up those cracks. So we're going to be a-okay. So our tart has completely baked and cooled down, and our filling is ready to go into the tart as well. I am just in love with how silky that looks. I'm just going to pour this straight into the tart. I'm just going to flatten it out now and spread it evenly. Now that our filling is in the tart shell itself, I'm just going to use a small spoon and spread it out evenly. I want the surface to be nice and smooth, but also have a few ripples because they look really nice. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just make these nice little ripples right here. So now this tart is ready to go into the refrigerator for at least an hour, but the longer that it can stay in the refrigerator, the better. Think about it. It has chocolate and it has coconut fat in it. So it needs some time for all of those fats to set and give your tart the beautiful, silky, smooth texture that we want. So I'll see you guys in the next hour once my tart is set so that we can cut it together. So guys, our tart has completely set in the refrigerator and now it's the moment of truth. Since I have a very nice tart mold that loosens up from the bottom, what I'm going to do is just that. And we're just going to keep it over here. Whoops. There we go. Before I cut into this delicious tart, what I'm going to do is finish it off with some gorgeous Cypress Pyramid sea salt flakes. I just want to show you guys a few of these flakes and how beautifully crystalline and crunchy they're going to be on top of this tart. The combination of sweet and salty is absolutely one of my favorites, and it's just going to bring another dimension to this quite sweet tart in itself. So this salt is going to add that crunch element, and every time you hit a nice big flake of this salt, you're going to get a burst of salt and it's just going to blow your mind. Look at this pyramid right here. That's the actual pyramid flake. Gorgeous. All right. So now we're just going to cut into this tart.